Hello ladies and gentlemen, today we're back in War Thunder doing another key positions video. Now we are on Eastern Europe, which isn't one of my favourite maps, just because there isn't a lot of variety and it seems like a lot of the time we basically get the same map. So when I'm looking at Eastern Europe, I'm going to be talking about the southern part of the map, which seems to be the area that Gaijin likes to focus on. We're going to look at a 3-point system. We're going to do it exactly how I've done it before, but I do want to point out I am using some new maps. Now I would like to know if you prefer these maps or if you prefer the maps which have the points on them so you can kind of understand where I'm talking about, or if just having this blank map is better for you. Also, if you want these maps, there will be a link in the description for you to download them yourself. They are on the War Thunder Live Community Center, and also they were featured by the War Thunder team on the main page. So let's get into it. We're going to be focusing on the east side today, so that means that we generally spawn around this area here. And from here, you basically have two options. For me, I personally do not like fighting around this whole area of the map. There are too many opportunities to be shot in the side. If you are in an extremely flanking tank, then what you would do is you would take basically this way here, move across this railway, push up the hill into this area, and then from this position, using the cover of the trees and everything around here, you can basically sit anywhere along here in these areas and be able to shoot directly into the enemy spawn, which is sat around here. So that is something that you can do. I personally don't like doing it, just because you can get shot in the side. There are dangerous areas, such as around here, where you can get hit. When you're on the bridge, it's quite easy for you to get hit. So unless you're in an incredibly fast vehicle, or you're at a point in the match where generally a lot of the enemy has been taken out, I wouldn't recommend taking this road. Let's say you're on your third spawn and you know there's only one or two enemies, then it's a perfect thing to do. It's a perfect thing to sit along this line, or just to sit in this crevice here waiting for people to spawn. But if it's the start of the match, which is what we're focusing on here, then it's generally not the best thing to do. So there are two other options from this side that you have. And the first option, we'll just get rid of this for you. The first option is pretty simple. It is going straight ahead. Now, depending on if you have a quicker vehicle or if you don't have a quick vehicle, let's say you do have a quick vehicle, you should move from the spawn to the capture point, which should be around this area here. Stay low to the terrain. There is a lot of areas that you can sit at in that area, so you can't get shot from anyone else. After capturing the zone, you have to look at two areas. The first area you must look at is around here. Now around here, what you will find is at least one or two people, including myself, which will be sat around there waiting for you to push forward. You also have to stare at this area here, where there will be people as well. So after looking at these two areas, if these two areas are clear, then you can push forward. There is also a ridge which will cover you from those positions, so you've got to watch out for that. If you start pushing forward and then you start seeing people pop out, then, you know, you're gonna have issues. But anyway, let's say you have just captured the first zone, which is near your base. And then from there, you've had a look over the ridges, and you've been able to spot these two positions and seen that there's no enemy tanks. So from there, in your quick tank, you have to push towards the center point. Now I just need to push this a bit further. There we go. So your danger area, or your danger corridor for the enemy to shoot you, is around here. I need to make this clearer for you so you can understand this. Let's just move everything so it's a bit more direct. So the first capture point is generally around here. It's in a bunch of houses. So that's the general road you'll get, basically a beeline to it. From this position, check the 2 areas, and then from there, you have to cut down and be able to reach this little area here, which is a little bit of a divot for you, and somewhere where you can fight from and be able to look down different roads. The area that you have to watch out for while you are making this travel plan, let's just put a little cross here so you know where to go, there we go, is here. This is a massive danger zone, and the reason why this is a massive danger zone is from everybody who is in the positions that I marked before, they have direct line of sight to shoot you from these positions, and that's where they'll be looking, because generally they're able to cover those positions without many issues, or without having to worry too much about incoming fire, since they are behind little ridges or behind little houses. So while you are making this crossing, you have to make sure that there is nobody there looking at you from the other areas. And 9 times out of 10, there's going to be people there staring at you in those areas that I've highlighted. So just make sure that you look at those areas, and if they're clear, you can make this path. If you can't make this path, because there is a bunch of enemies who are sat out here, then what you have to do is push down here, but we'll get into that in a second. Let's say this area is clear, you're able to move forward. So from this position, down near the central point, which is here, your job is not to push unless your team has already pushed through, then you support them. What your job to do from the position is to make sure that this road down here near the river and this road coming up into the spawn, so basically this whole area here, is free of enemy tanks. And if it is not free of enemy tanks, then you take them out. So the way that you're able to do this is by dipping and diving, which I'll show you in the video, how to be able to do, how to be able to cover these 2 roads. And by dipping and diving between houses, between everything like that, making sure that you cover both of these roads. Now, what does this mean? This generally means that while you're in this position, you don't have to worry about the 2 areas I talked about before, but what you do have to worry about is the 1 or 2 enemies which are going to use the north side of the map to be able to push and maybe sit behind houses such as here, such as here, such as here. And they'll be looking for you to pop out. So before you are able to have a look down this road here, which there will be at least 1 or 2 enemies, what you have to do is make sure that the north of the place is clear. Generally this can be signaled by if there's an ally here, or if there's an ally pushing in, or if you haven't seen anything while going over there. If you are incredibly quick at capturing the first point and moving in, sometimes you will be able to see enemy tanks which are pushing through over here, trying to get to the positions that I talked about. So yeah, you've got to watch that side of the river if you want to use this point. It's kind of annoying. A lot of this map is generally just checking corners and being able to push out when required, and that to me is incredibly boring. But anyway, after taking that position, you're able to support your front tanks, which are trying to capture the central point. And as I said, once once your allies have taken the central point and they start beelining down these roads, well, you have to support them. Now, what you don't do is you don't take the road which is out near the river, because that opens you up to attacks from over here, attacks from over here, and also just general attacks which I talked about before on the north side. What you have to do is you have to follow this main road through with your allies. That's basically all you have to do from that position, and once you've reached this road here, you've won the map, because you can just shoot them as they come out of your spawn. So let's say we're in a position where we've just captured the first Let's just set it up again. We've captured the first domination point, and the road's not clear. There's a ton of enemies around here, right? Just sat around here waiting for you to make that little cross that I talked about before on open ground. Well, what you do is instead of pushing to the north, you push to the south. There is a divot that you can take, which pretty much covers you from the majority of the fire, which you will see from this ridge line, which eventually arcs around over to here. And you'll be able to, hopefully, hold them off by pushing over here and just waiting. So let's just set this up. It's much more like that, in a general sense, so much more of a curved attack, which you have to look for. So, from the first domination point, you cut south, and you just keep going until you hit a certain little area where you have two choices. You can either go forward or go more left. Now, if you are a conservative player like myself, you may want to, from this position, just keep going over, make sure to get into that densely forested area, and then be able to push around to attack the enemies. If you are a bit more aggressive-minded, then the only way to go is to try and push straight through. Now, both of these options are not great. Depending on how many tanks are over here, it can really screw you up, let's say, when it comes to what you have to do. So, a lot of the times, what actually happens, or at least for me personally, if there are a lot of tanks over here, I either try and fight my corner in this area here and just try and get hull down. If I have some decent turret armor, try and take some of them out, try and weed them out and then push forward. Hopefully the guys in the city, which are, you know, dotted around here, will be able to hold as well, and then if we're able to hold for a bit, take out some targets, then we can push down to what I talked about before. But if you don't want to do that and you want to be a bit more proactive, pushing down to the south is a good idea, just to set up another arc of fire where people have to shoot at. Now, from this position, as I said before, you can move forward, and you can also move down. But also, from this position, you actually get a pretty decent firing slot, which you can use to attack the people. On the ridge over here. So that would also be something I would look into. Because of how the map is laid out, though, you have kill zones, which I really don't like. Generally, when I'm talking about key positions, I'm talking about areas I like to fight in and everything like that. Well, let's just label some areas no-go areas. This is a no-go area. Do not go anywhere near this. You can go up here, but I would strongly recommend not to. And this is a no-go area as well, unless you're crossing very quickly. And also, let's say this is a no-go area as well, if you're moving from the east and trying to push across. So basically what happens is, because this area of the map is cornered off, because you can't really do anything in this area of the map, what happens is you're forced into the town while the enemies over here are attacking you. And that kind of sucks. That's basically why I don't like this map in a nutshell. Which is why, you know, forced into these little fighting areas, which are the only places where I see myself doing well, or branch out and trying to deal with the forces which are on the hill. From the west side, there are a lot more options, so hopefully I'll make sure to make that video soon. But from the east side, you are definitely limited. If you take the first route that I talked about, which is, you know, all the way around over here, you've got to watch your sides from this area, because there will be a tank trying to look for you. But, you know, Godspeed and go for it. If you want to take the second route, I think it's probably the best route. You just have a small area where they can shoot you. You can always double back and go back into the spawn and then go to that area if you feel like it. It just takes a bit more time. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and, well, have a nice day.